Silver Fox.
I'm going to have one selectman join us remotely because
Cool.
We got the mic.
Now.
Can you hear us? Okay.
I can hear you, yes. Do I have to yell? You can hear me though.
No, you're.
Okay, because you're awfully small.
Perfect.
Okay.
I like it.
We'll get going in 45 seconds.
Gotcha.
Really quiet.
Yeah. The longest.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. I'm just like, in that little mini screen, it looks like there's like a plasma TV in the corner. Like, where is that? You know,
Yeah.
Hologram.
Yeah.
Yeah, Josh, can you figure that out, holograms?
Holograms?
Yeah,
It's
you
like
just
a
have a-
Coachella.
That would be very cool.
At some point.
All right, David, you ready?
You're on.
Okay, welcome everyone to the Lincolnville Selectmen's meeting. It is the 9th of May. It is 6 p.m. Reminder, we are broadcasting on cable TV on channel 22, live streaming on our YouTube channel. That is the Town of Lincolnville's YouTube channel. And it is possible to participate via Zoom. If you have questions about that, reach out to us at the town office. Josh, would you read the quote of the evening?
Sure. I know not with what weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. Albert Einstein.
That's quite the tongue twister, actually.
Yeah.
Reading it in my head, it wasn't that big of a deal, but thank you for accomplishing that. I'll open the podium for the citizens forum for any non-agenda items. Seeing no one rushing to the podium for the citizens forum, let's move along to the administrator's report.
I just need to let the board know that the custodian of the town office has submitted his resignation as of the end of the month. Digging out a 20-year-old job description, checking to make sure it's current, accurate, and then we'll be in search mode for new part-time custodian for here. Paving, as of today, we completed the paving. We still have shoulder work to do, which will be done later after the pavement gets a chance to set. And we will be out for anybody that might be tuned in that has a little lip in their driveway from the new pavement down to their gravel driveway. We'll be out in the next couple of days to fill those in to ease the transition from between now and shoulders. Absentee ballots for both the state and the local election should be available next Monday. For anybody that's interested, you can contact us here at the town office or come in and vote in person as of next Monday. Let's see, got contacted by the Maine Department of Transportation regarding an agreement we have. We got a wave barrier in the harbor. It's the wooden wave screen that's between the ferry slip there, which is either expired or expiring. It will require a town meeting vote to approve. We may be looking to amend the June warrant to get that on there because who knows when we'll be voting again. But ship that all down to our town attorney for consult and back, so hang on, next meeting probably. And finally, congratulations to Abigail Weber of the Lincolnville Central School. Abigail participated in the Maine Municipals Association statewide essay contest, which started off with the prompt, "If I Led My Community." She was elected as one of 3 winners statewide. Chair Dunn presented a certificate today at the school assembly, and as well as the Municipal Association provided a $250 gift card. So congratulations to Abigail.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she read the whole essay in front of the assembly, which I thought was very brave.
Yeah.
So outside of the agenda,
Any questions for David on the administrator's report?
Nope.
Moving along to upcoming meetings and announcements.
all meetings are here at the town office unless announced otherwise. The Conservation Commission is meeting Thursday, May 12th, 4 p.m. Broadband Committee meeting Thursday, May 12th, 6 p.m. Board of Appeals meeting Monday, May 16th, 7 p.m. The 5-town CSD budget meeting is Tuesday, May 17th at 7 p.m. in the gymnasium of the Camden Hills Regional High School. The public hearing on the moratorium ordinance will be Wednesday, May 18th, 6 p.m. Comprehensive Plan Review Committee meets Wednesday, May 18th, 7 p.m. The Board of Selectmen meet next on Monday, May 23rd, 6 p.m.
Thank you very much. Are there any upcoming community events anyone wishes to share? Seeing nothing, let's move along to the meeting minutes from the 25th of April.
And then the board approve the April 25th, 2022 meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Garrettson. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Barnett Parker, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes, motion passes. Thank you all very much. And moving along to agenda item number 6, we have Mr. Stephen Cole here tonight from the Maine DOT. He's a Region 1 and 2 planner to talk to us about the Village Partnership Initiative. Can I invite you up to the podium?
I guess I'll accept it.
Thank you. And just introduce yourself for the folks watching at home.
I'm Steve Cole. I'm a regional planner, which means kind of transportation and land use planner for Maine DOT. And the regions I work in are Region 2, which is DOT's Mid-Coast region, and Region 1, which is Cumberland and York County. But the Mid-Coast is my home. I live in Damascus and have for many years, and before that lived in Belfast, so Lincolnville is kind of within my home turf. It seems like someone on the board watched an MMA presentation that included the commissioner of DOT, Bruce Van Note, and my boss, the head of the Bureau of Planning, Dale Dowdy, a presentation about a new matching grant program from DOT called the Village Partnership Program. Many towns may imagine that DOT sort of shows up and does work in its work plan every few years in your community, and that's kind of your interaction with them. But the DOT actually has a number of matching grant programs in which it partners with municipalities and has for some time. And the names and topics of those, I think, are in the handout that David's provided. But I'd like to share a little bit about our newest program, which is the Village Partnership Program. It's a matching grant program with Maine municipalities, and the match is based on a sliding scale based on the community's valuation. And the intent of this program is to do two things. One is to enhance main villages or downtowns in their success as community and economic development hubs, and to increase safety in those locations for all users, whether you're a school kid or someone out for a walk, or someone on a bike, or someone with a handicap, or someone in a vehicle. And DOT has done village or downtown-based projects on a kind of one-off basis for a long time. I think DOT sees the work on Route 1 as kind of in that mode. But we've expanded this program to make it a regular part of what DOT does. So this grant program comes in two sizes, sort of two scales. The first is what are called spot improvements or gateway improvements. What makes them distinctive is that they're sort of small dollars, at least in DOT's parlance, about $200,000 to $500,000. And they're meant maybe not for full-blown downtowns, but for villages, places where there's a cluster of activity, where maybe you've got a corner store, a church, some residences, and there's some activity there, and there's some use of the roadway, and municipalities are interested in slowing down traffic, regularizing the way cars use the road, and making the place more usable for the rest of the people who are using that road beyond folks in cars. And then there's a larger scale project for kind of established downtowns. The work that we did in Lincolnville Beach, the work that was done in Thomaston recently, in Hallowell, in Belgrade, if you go through that village on your way west, are examples of those projects. And those in those projects, there's a fair amount of preliminary planning done, and the scale of the projects are pretty large. They're sort of probably $2 million and up, and it's a lot of reconfiguration in that downtown, not only of traffic, but of parking, sidewalks, pedestrian crossing opportunities, kind of a full-blown redevelopment in terms of transportation infrastructure in a downtown to make it a more usable and successful place. In those latter grants, we would be going after, in partnership with a municipality, federal grant dollars in the new discretionary funds that are being rolled out from US DOT as part of the BUILD grant, which you've probably seen referenced in the press. So those are sort of speculative in that the municipality and DOT decide to partner up, and we decide to look to the feds for money for a large-scale project. But we can't be certain that that money will come to us. It depends on how well our project scores compared to others across the nation. The smaller scale projects that I mentioned, a couple $100,000 to $500,000, those use state money. So once we've approved what we think you're going to do, the funding is assured. An important thing about these grants and about all the grants that DOT offers is that we provide matching grants because we have a 3-year work plan that includes hundreds of projects, and sometimes it's not easy for a municipality's own priority to rise to the top of DOT's statewide list. So the matching grant program is an opportunity for us to tell you about something you'd like to do, and we see if there's interest and approval on our end. And then essentially the town provides the horsepower to do the work. You contract with an engineer, you administer the project, and we reimburse you at the end for our matching portion. So it puts more responsibility and the onus for the project onto the municipality. And that's the way that towns and cities are sometimes able to sort of jump line, getting a municipal priority higher on our list by accepting our money or our matching money, but actually providing the person power to get the work done on your own. So that's a lot of words in a short amount of time, and maybe I'll leave it there and take either general questions or specific questions about what struck your interest about this grant program and where you think it might be applicable in Lincolnville.
Who would like to go first? Jordan.
Well, since, just touching on the matching aspect of it that you just went over,
Yeah.
in that scenario, hypothetically, if we were to go forward with a project, would we have a guarantee of the match money, obviously before we initiate a large-scale project like that, and it's not something that would be contingent? Do you know what I'm saying? So that we know that we're not putting ourselves at a liability by starting, let's say, a $1 million project without knowing that down the line we get reimbursement.
Yeah. Certainly for the smaller scale projects, before you got underway, we approved the preliminary engineering and the concept so that you'd be certain that you had a partner. For the larger scale grants that we essentially apply to the feds for, you'd have our assurance that we would be your partner, but we'd be at the mercy of grant reviewers in Washington, D.C. There is a difference in match from when we apply for federal grants. In that case, the match ratio is 80% Fed and then 20% state and local. So it would be 10 town, 10 state, 80 Feds. But the stakes are higher, harder to get those dollars. But you'd have assurances for smaller projects and as much assurance as we could give for the larger scale ones.
And just a quick follow-up. So just with those numbers, I saw it went from, a small scale project, 250, 500,000,
Yeah.
then it jumped to 2 million for the larger one. Is there an exact delineation at which point it becomes a quote unquote larger project that then gets submitted to the federal level? Like, is there a hard number where it gets kicked up? And is that at 500,000?
It probably would be something that would kick in at probably about $1 million or so. And we, both the town and DOT would have a better sense of what something is likely to cost, because we would do engineering, scoping, and planning at the outset to get an estimate of what a project is likely to cost.
Thank you.
Yeah.
To jump off of Jordan's questions, is it possible, are there preventative measures, say if a town wanted to approach things in segments, say wanted to, keep it as small scale and just tackle a small project,
Yeah.
but then link additional to be, a continuous pathway ultimately? Is there any prohibition to essentially having a step one?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not for small scale
Yeah.
projects. Certainly you could do them sequentially. We would not provide match for your full-blown plan.
Sure.
We would provide match and approved projects for the small increments, and you could continue to apply as you were able and interested.
Okay, thank you.
That's how we work. It seems like the area of interest is, based on the map that David sent me is Lincolnville Center. And even, just in my time in this region, 30 some odd years, I've seen the center evolve and become more of a main street and more community uses end up along the state roads here. It's if you were to consider things like sidewalks from the town office into the intersection with 52, or and then sidewalks up to the church and down to the park, that'd probably be a pretty big, expensive project. I think that would probably be, might even be in the range of a couple $1 million itself. We've seen infrastructure costs increase by 20-25% in the last year or so. So, that's just sidewalks alone without other amenities you might be interested in. So it's a way of saying that that a project, even in a relatively small portion of the municipality, can be pretty expensive, but extremely valuable in the end. But I think worth doing. Right. So are there specific elements or pieces that you're interested in or would be interested in trying to get started with?
Yeah, for sure. We have a question from Selectman Ray remotely.
Oh, there. Thanks for coming by, Steve. Yeah, you all can hear me, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thanks. A lot of what you say seems to, or a lot of the information that you have seems to rely on how much visioning, quote unquote, the town has done before the DOT will engage in any planning with the town. And so I'm kind of wondering what counts, as far as the DOT is concerned, as us having done visioning. Do we need something written in the comprehensive plan that says we would like to address an issue? Or do we have to have something budgeted already? Or how does that work? So we can begin conversations, let's say, if we wanted to do something.
Yeah. For the smaller scale projects, we would hope that there was maybe a planning document that dealt with the center that the town may have done, or some engineering studies on costs for things like sidewalks that the town had done in the area of the center. That would be a place to start. If not, you need to engage an engineer, or if there's an engineer who's under contract to the town, they could do some of that work. For the larger scale projects that we compete in Washington for, there's an additional, actually matching planning grant that DOT offers called the Planning Partnership Initiative. And that allows both the land use and transportation planning and the engineering to go forward as a preliminary step to scoping a large-scale project that we would then apply to Washington for. So I can see a follow-on question emerging.
Am I that transparent there? Sorry, but well, I'm just wondering what let's say that there's in our current comprehensive plan, which is being revised now, there's language that says sidewalks in the center would be a wonderful thing, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Let's say that the town has already approved in a budget a couple years ago or a year ago for some sidewalks along those lines, and there have been a few charrettes, town gatherings, talking about just pedestrian sidewalks, traffic calming in the center. Would all of those things qualify as far as you're concerned, or would you like something more specific dated by an engineer?
Well, they're important and they're part of the package.
Right.
But we would need either a planning consultant and or an engineer to provide specifics. Essentially, the physical distance that sidewalks would run, their width, where pedestrian crossings would be, what other elements you might want to include. And we would want that work priced out as well, so that both the town and DOT knows exactly, or as close as we can estimate at the time, what we'll be buying. So it has to be pretty specific, because this grant money is for implementation. It's actually for building the infrastructure you want.
Right. But see, I'm not talking about the necessary information that has to be in place to actually engineer and lay out and have the sidewalks for federal monies, for example. I'm talking about what's it going to take to get the DOT and the town of Lincolnville talking and planning together. What kind of information do you need ahead of time when it comes to the so-called visioning aspect?
Well, we need strong evidence that there have been public gatherings or charrettes that focus on this specific part of town and these kinds of amenities, and that some conclusions have been arrived at and consensus achieved around that.
Okay, well, thanks. Okay, great. Thank you.
Jordan, did you have a follow-up question?
I just had a quick one. So,
Sure.
you know, the planning partnership grant or those funds that are available at the federal level, is there anything that is similar that's available on a state level as far as helping us out with planning and moving forward with like an engineering study? Or is that only available at the federal level?
We actually can roll some engineering costs, some preliminary engineering costs into the smaller scale grants. So, you know, the town's picking up some of that cost, and we are, through our match, picking up some of it. So we can handle some of the engineering costs, but I guess it really depends upon how much charrette work, how much public planning has been done, and whether the select board feels like it's you've actually sort of cemented a concept, and there's agreement about it.
Yeah.
So it would be things, for instance, it would not only be the actual elements, but where in fact they would start and end on the state roads that make up the center here.
So not just general ideas, but a concise plan, even before the engineer comes out to say point A to point B, and this is the purpose, and this is why and what the town would expect from such a project.
Right, yeah.
And we're ready to put our money where our
Yeah,
mouth is, basically.
That seems like
yeah.
that's the caveat of,
Yeah.
yes.
And would you also want to see broad public consensus that the town wanted it, not just the select board?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's a big component. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting, okay.
And then we'd sort of gauge that by a charrette or some public meetings in which people come to discuss the concepts and the locations and the amenities and the elements that you're thinking about. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be as formal as a vote, although sometimes municipalities do that, but the consensus that is pretty obvious to any reader.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I've got one.
Yeah, sure, Mike.
Another question. So let's say the town were to do some charrette-like meetings to gauge public support and to do a vision process. Is that something that a representative from the DOT, you, for example, might be willing to attend just to be able to answer questions that the public might have?
Yeah, we certainly do that. I mean, most municipalities, if they don't have a planner on staff, might hire a consulting planner, or if you have an engineer who kind of has enough scope to help with public process as well as technical engineering, sometimes they're able to do that
Okay.
work as well.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Sure. So, it's not as simple as sort of not an immediate process, but as you know, these issues are important, and because they're important, they're complex. But I think Lincolnville Center is sort of really a textbook example of the kind of locale in the state that where we think transportation improvements could help to move the center in the direction that it's obviously already going. So I'd be happy in the future to answer questions from any of you via email or phone, or by David as well, as you contemplate if this is something of interest going forward.
Yeah. Well, we had a wonderful community walk of proposed sidewalk sites with some great participation, great questions. I feel like this conversation has been building momentum pretty significantly. And we've, as Mike said, we have allocated some funds, or the taxpayers raised and appropriated some funds to pick a very tiny spot down towards Breezemere.
Yeah.
But obviously one segment begets another segment,
Right.
and as you've articulated, there's usage by children, pedestrians, bikers, all of that in this. I'm pointing in a direction, but
No,
here in the
I
center, yeah. So I'm just curious, let's say we, as a community, are able soon-ish, and I'd be curious what the DOT would define, or this program would define as soonish, because I know this is a competitive program. So, best case scenario, what time frame for us getting our ducks in a row would be, and then once we have that, clearly documented community decision that this is something that we're interested in, and the board concurs, and we move forward with some sort of engineering, whether it's in partnership with the state, or, that sounds great to me. What's the time frame for, ideally, for completing a project like this? Let's, say a small scale project.
Once we awarded a matching grant, it would be 3 years.
3 years, yeah.
Yeah.
So within your grand planning scope.
But we're taking admissions on kind of a rolling basis from municipalities, and there has been lots of interest, but most cities and towns are doing what you're doing. They're getting a little more familiar with the material and then sort of huddling, and we expect that we'll hear from people in the months ahead, and we know there'll be money for the next few years, and probably as long as this commissioner and this administration is in office. So it's worth getting underway when you have momentum, but you won't miss the boat if you were to submit something in 2023 as opposed to 2022.
Okay.
And starting small, I think, makes sense, since the town or a consultant to the town would end up managing the project. Some towns have I've used these matching grants from DOT to manage projects before, but not every town has that experience. Starting small and moving along is an opportunity to build momentum and build confidence and get stuff done.
Great, thank you. Yeah, Josh.
I was wondering, in the eyes of the DOT, would it be more attractive if we had one big project where we said we want to build a sidewalk from the town office to the park? Or splitting that up into 2 or 3 projects? In the eyes of the DOT, do you prefer one or the other?
No, we don't.
Okay.
Well, and, sorry.
Yeah, no.
Also, just, and not to step in front of you, but it seems like the larger the project, the more we're taking it out of the DOT's hands and putting it in the federal level. So if we're thinking about doing a project that, and I think, and this is just a ballpark, like we had talked, it was like 1.78 million or above, to do that comprehensive project, then I think that automatically would put us in that tier level of above $1 million, where that request would be going to the feds, which is not a no man's land, but it's not as, yeah, it's not that there's a guarantee with the DOT, but like you said, there's a different level of
There's
kind of
more,
throwing the
there's
dice.
more risk.
Yeah.
DOT actually has a good record of getting funding from, additional funding from US DOT, but it's never short.
Yeah.
And given the awareness of new infrastructure money coming out of Washington, lots of cities and towns and states are almost more aware than they've ever been of the opportunity.
Maybe it would be best to outline the overall scope of everything, maybe break it up into smaller projects with a little bit of advice from DOT.
Yeah.
And I understand more information is better for you, hence the, engineer's report, and we gotta know what we want, is what I'm hearing here as well. I mean,
Yeah, know what you want and
We're not-
and know what you can afford.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily, yeah,
Right.
not necessarily gonna make a lot of headway if someone needs a lot of guidance as to what they want. So if we really know what we want, get it to an overall level and then break it up into, maybe it's gotta be 4 or 5 projects. I mean, I don't know, but it seems like this particular program is not gonna go away soon. So it's a really good program.
I think if there's if we can see a larger vision, but you've segmented it into portions that you can afford and portions that you prioritize, then that gives us confidence that you're planning for the long term, but you're knowing that you need to do it in an economical way.
And is that just because yes, everything you just said. So is that something that you or your office would be able to kind of dip in the early stages and identify those starting and stopping places for, say, breaking up a bigger picture into 3 or 4 segments from the DOT's perspective? Just because I could see us sort of arbitrarily picking a spot that may not be correct, I guess, in the eyes of the DOT. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we'd probably say yay or nay or something, but from our experience, we have a sense of what's practical.
Yeah.
And what would work in terms of sidewalks and crossings. But, your engineer or planning assistant or consultant would be really helpful in that way too.
Okay, great. David, anything else we haven't touched on right now that you want to add? I mean, besides the obvious.
No, I think I have I understand the basics of the program,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm good.
Thank you so much for coming up this evening. And, you know, I think, like I said, that the community has definitely been reaching out to us pretty consistently. And I think this will help provide the clarity and direction that we will need to fine tune the conversations we've been having. Yeah.
I'm happy to help you with some of that defining and clarifying as you move forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thanks.
Welcome.
The
Pay no
voice.
attention to the man behind
I do feel like the Wizard of Oz, yeah.
And moving along, we have a draft of the special town meeting warrant regarding citizens petition requesting a moratorium ordinance. Questions from the board? Does anyone wish to make a motion?
We talk about?
Sure.
Yeah, so.
You've got to come up to the podium,
Yeah, I
please.
will. Just wanted to make sure. So, we have some concerns about the way the ordinance is worded. Can I not do this? An
Yeah,
example of,
well, so
In addition
we
to the-
discourage last minute handouts simply
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we publish information so the public
yeah.
can accurately and transparently
Can I give one to
participate.
David?
Yeah, that would be great. But if you want to come up to the podium and articulate your position, that would be
Absolutely.
wonderful.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, my concern was that the way the moratorium ordinance is written is that not everybody's going to read or preview it and put time into doing that. And I'm concerned that when it comes time to vote, people are going to see this and say that would prohibit the construction of any new or currently proposed piers, docks, slopes, ramps, permanent structures on the coast for which construction has not yet commenced being acted. Okay, so what I would like to do is just add simply to that, or do you have it in front of you? Are you looking at it?
Mhm.
Yeah. So at the end of 2022, comma, be enacted for a period of 180 days beginning May 25th, 2022. In other words, the day that
Isn't that what
that it is voted on.
isn't that what the moratorium is 180 days?
It is.
Yeah,
But again, what I'm concerned is that people may not see that, and the way that it's worded, maybe it's not a big deal, it's just a concern that I have that may be an issue. And I would like to be certain that people are not just gonna prohibit any new construction and say no.
I totally understand your concerns, but I would certainly hope if someone's coming and voting on this, that they've read and done their homework. I mean, this draft warrant is completely adequate, more than adequate, sufficient, clear, has the facility to accomplish the goal, yeah.
I wish I was as certain as you are, and just looking at some of the examples from, anyway, Camden and Prospect both include 180 days in their ordinance wording, as an example. And I think there are many examples throughout the state of towns putting that in there, just to be sure and cover all the bases and make sure that nobody misunderstands or misreads or considers, sees prohibit and thinks, oh, well, I don't want to put it.
Okay. I guess, so I just wanted to know if there a reason why we did not put in the term of 180. Oh, here we have.
Yes.
The language that is in Article 2 is what was submitted in the petition from the voters. When petitions are prepared, there are primarily three portions to it. There's a heading, which just says, we the undersigned voters of the town. There is the preambulatory portion, which are all the whereases and the whatevers. And then typically there's a section at the bottom that says, and now something heretofore, do the voters want to adopt an ordinance? This petition didn't have that last section. Like, I never saw one from Prospect, but certainly if you go look at the moratorium ordinance proposed in Camden, it has all the whereases, and then it has additional language at the bottom about what, what the action that the petitioners are seeking. In the lack of that, the paragraph from moratorium ordinance down through March 31st, 2022 is verbatim what's in the article. Because we don't have anything to go by, we can't read besides what was submitted. It clearly talks about in one of the whereases, 180 days. Moratorium ordinances by state statute last 180 days. I would caution the board not to insert its own language within the article, because doing so may be contrary to what was being asked. Even though the primary circulator of the petition is standing here, there were 180 odd people that signed a petition that asked for a certain thing. And if you start substituting words in now, you run the risk of it being contrary to what was petitioned to you.
Yeah.
Also, this will be an open town meeting where everybody can come and ask questions, and people can say, it lasts 180 days, it can be extended by this.
So this is not a secret ballot?
This is not a secret ballot, this is.
No.
the
Someone
meeting.
could get up and.
Yeah, no, I know, and I mean,
Well, maybe I should have asked that first. I mean, I was assuming there was secret ballots.
No, somebody at the meeting itself could request that we vote by secret ballot.
And that would have to pass by a majority of the legislative body.
Whatever the moderator tells us the proper procedure is then. But the way this is set up right now, Article 1 is to elect a moderator. We'll all get those interested, show up in the room at the appointed time, and they're registered voters. We'll elect a moderator, and then the moderator will proceed with Article 2, which asks that question. Somebody will have to make a motion to approve or deny, I suppose. And then there'd be a second, and then there would be discussion amongst those there about what does this mean? And how is this interpreted, and what does it mean? And then the chance for people to convince their friends and neighbors to vote yes or vote no or abstain, whatever you want to do. And when everybody is exhausted of discussion and debate, the moderator will call for a vote, and the majority rules the day.
Yeah, great. Just for my own future understanding of this, better understanding of this, there is wording in here that did say 180 days, right? So I'm not sure, is it because you're looking at just the heading and you don't look at the other wording of the lawyer or?
No, the whereases, John, are the reasons, typically,
Right.
are the reasons for moratorium or whatever the resolution is. It's the facts that you build upon before you have the ask, which is, in this case, a moratorium ordinance. I happened to print off the Camden one, and the last paragraph very clearly, now wherefore be resolved that we adopt a moratorium ordinance on, piers, docks, slopes, ramps, in or out of coastal harbor, has an effective date, it tells what it doesn't apply to, routine maintenance and repairs.
I think it does say at least 180 days.
It does, and it does say the term of the ordinance will be from 180 days from the effective date. Very clear what the ask was requested in that circumstance, and I don't want to pass judgment on whoever drafted the Lincolnville version. It was not as clear as the Camden version. I'm sure when you go look at the Camden question, they have likely ignored all the whereases and gone to the last paragraph of what the ask is of the voters. And that's why the ask of the voters in Lincolnville is paragraph 1, not the whereases, and they're confused.
Mhm.
Okay, well, satisfies my concern, so, looking forward to, oh, wait, is there, I'm sorry, Jim.
I saw your hand.
All right,
Thanks,
thank
John. Yeah, come on up.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Temple, live in Lincolnville, and I just am noticing a similarity between the conversation you guys just had with the DOT, where you asked a lot of questions because it's not something that you've done before. Pretty sure that this is a very rare thing that the town of Lincolnville has voters coming up. Actually, I hate standing up here and talking to you guys, so.
Understandable.
I've had
We
some
love
pretty-
having you
I've
there, that
had some
makes any
pretty
difference.
rough times at this place. So anyway, I'm pretty sure that I was at a meeting where it was mentioned that this doesn't happen very often. So I don't know how the moratorium wording happened. I don't know if guidance was offered. But by definition, a moratorium doesn't mean full-blown prohibition. Thinking that's true. Some of us will know that by definition. A lot of us will not. This is a whole new experience, at least in my 10 or so years of living in this town. Maybe for those of you who were even born here, maybe this is now something like this hasn't happened before. So I would just encourage whoever helps people who don't really understand how the government works here, that we just be a little bit more helpful with that. I used to work at MBNA, and the concept was think of yourself as a customer. Yeah, I think that would have been pretty helpful. Now it's hindsight. So if you're not able to cut and paste the 180 days from the whereases, you're not able to, but it might be helpful if at that meeting, one of you could stand up and explain that, because a lot of us just don't plain know.
Well, so I guess I would say, in response to that is, the board in this case is kind of acting in a purely administrative form because we didn't initiate this. This was not born from the select board. This was born from a citizens initiative. And so it's purely mechanics that we're putting this forward in front. We're just the conduit.
Right, so what you could say is, it's purely mechanics that the 180 days isn't in there because the good people who put this forward didn't realize that it should have been at the end of the page instead of along the middle.
Yeah, and certainly if that question comes up at the public hearing, we can either point at our friendly town administrator to explain just those fun bureaucratic details. Yeah,
The more we know, the better we can do. Right?
sure.
No matter what side we stand on,
Sure,
or we stand in the middle,
Sure.
help us make our decision.
sure.
But the more we know, the better.
Yeah,
We all.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, Jordan.
I just want to acknowledge whether this seems fruitless or not without us, laying blame. It's not a blame game, but I just want to acknowledge, I can understand the frustration in not understanding exactly what exact text would be transposed from the petition over. Again, not saying there was a failure on anyone's part,
No.
but just on a human level, can definitely understand the confusion and your frustration. So I just wanted to get off of that, so.
Nicely done. Thank you for being here. It's so nice to see people in the audience. Any more? Yes, sorry, Josh.
Yeah, no problem. So I'll be honest that, we had read the petition 2 weeks ago, and it said 180 days, and I knew that, had that in my brain. And then when I read this in the packet and I didn't see 180 days, my initial reaction was, oh, we're prohibiting the construction of them until someone does something. I'm like, oh, okay, that's pretty strong, and that was my reaction, and I'm on board. And I guess my first question is, if we did add 180 days, and I completely understand what you said, is there a legal concern for doing that?
I would, if the board wished to add 180 days or any additional language beyond what is drafted here, my advice to you, it's your warrant, you can do what you wish. But my advice to you would be to draft the language thought you wanted to include and send it to the town attorney to review again and get it back, and
Yeah, I
you
would-
would get advice and guidance, because,
I would
We don't want-
I
we
would
don't want to
strongly
mess around with
caution
this.
against doing that, because the timelines
Right.
and that, is an individual not reading the language that is available in multiple locations, and if anybody wants to read the language and is unsure where to get it, please reach out to us at the town office. We're happy to provide that language, just as an aside, but
I'm just asking, I mean, if this was a secret ballot, then I would feel very strongly that we should change it, but it's not. It's an open town meeting. Kern and I have a board meeting that night, so unfortunately, we won't be able to be there. So one of you three will have to explain.
no pressure.
And this is not meant for argumentative sake, and this is the last thing I'll have to say, but I do understand that I would say, and maybe I'm completely wrong, but on every level of voting, most voters, the level of research that goes in is the question that is in front of them. So I know that there's things available, and again, not casting aspersions, I'm not saying denigrating anyone, I'm not arguing with you at all, what you're saying is completely valid, it's just, I feel like the majority of the lay people who are voting, they see what's in front of them, that's all the information they have, and their interpretation is it, and I have nothing else to say, and just, that's it, so sorry, just, there's valid points all around here, and I don't disagree with any of them.
Mike, just anything you want to add to the conversation?
Oh, well, I've just been sitting here listening. I would say that I certainly agree with what's been said about not adding language that someone didn't see when they signed it. That is, I don't want to add something that wasn't there for those 191 people, of course. That would just be wrong and potentially illegal. So I just, that's way too risky, and that's wrong to do. And it, as you said, lately, this board here, we're just mechanical, we're just conduits, bringing this information to the legislative body on behalf of a group of citizens. We can't attempt to influence it either way. That's not our job. It's kind of a political question whether there ought to be this moratorium or not. It's not our job to make it more clear or less clear. It's our job to move it on down the line. And that's what we've done.
All right, thanks for that, Mike. Is there any further discussion?
I'll
See,
just say one more, if I could.
yeah, new point?
Yeah, so John Vincent, I didn't say that earlier, but, no, our intention is certainly not to try to influence anybody to write anything that we did not intend. Our intention was and is, I believe, very clear. At least if it isn't, I don't know what else we could do to make it more clear. So I'm glad that it's going to be an open ballot, and that we'll be able to discuss these very things there, so that everybody will know that it is not a permanent prohibition, that it is something that is a moratorium by statute is 180 days. So as long as that's clear to everybody, that'll be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
If there's no further discussion, Selectman Link, what's your vote?
Did we make a motion?
We didn't, I thought we were in discussion. Gosh, all of this conversation, sorry about that.
We have someone here.
Ugh, God, sure, yeah, come on up. Since we haven't made a motion, for some reason, I thought we were.
We're just chatting.
Do I say my name? My name is
Yes,
Kate
please.
Campbell, and I'm 16, and I'm very concerned about this here because it is something that will impact my generation, the environmental repercussions. And what I'm understanding is that a moratorium is 180 days, and you guys all know that. And these people here know that, but not many people who vote will know that. I can't legally vote yet, but I know I would be really confused if I was going up to the table and I saw this question and I didn't know how long it was, so I think it's just like half a sentence, and it is it's a fact that it is that many days, not many people know that. So I guess I'm not understanding why you can't put something, a fact down. If it is this long, that is a fact, but not everyone will know that, so why can't you just put it down?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think we've pretty adequately spoken to that point, but I would say one of the beautiful lines that does come through here is that it is a citizens' initiative. And since we're purely acting in an administrative aspect with this, the frustrating and the beautiful part about democracy, especially a pure form of democracy like this, and particularly with a citizens' initiative like this, I think the onus falls upon the citizens who are bringing this passion and bringing this issue to the townspeople at this special town meeting, is that the responsibility does fall upon the citizens to educate the public on what they're voting and get people to show up and vote. And we can have a conversation there on live in person. And it's a pretty rare form of democracy in this day and age, but you know, it's a place where questions can be answered and action will be taken.
And it's really, sorry, but it's very commendable that you're coming up and speaking your truth and that you're here and participating. Most adults don't even do that, so no, personally, on a personal level, I just want to say that, and it's very encouraging to see you taking part. I know it's very frustrating. Bureaucracy in general is extremely frustrating because it works on exact actions, and that doesn't make it any better. I know it's not, but I just wanted to say that I'm glad that you're at least here and speaking your truth, and you're participating, and that's the building block. So you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and I hope that that can bring you at least some solace in the situation that's frustrating. And I hope that doesn't seem like I'm giving you words out, but I just wanted to say that it's impressive to me that you're here, and I'm glad you're participating, even though it's frustrating, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, I recall now, we were both about to make a motion, and then we entered into such a wonderful, robust conversation that, therefore, would someone care to make a motion, please?
I move that the board approve and sign the special town meeting warrant for May 25th, 2022.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Garrettson, seconded by Selectman Late. Further discussion. Seeing nothing from the board. Selectman Late, what is your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what is your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what is your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Barnett Parker, what is your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes, the motion passes. We will see you all on the 25th, if not
Thank you for your
before.
time.
Thank you, good night.
Thank you very much.
And moving rapidly along, Selectman Barnett Parker, you have the floor.
Okay, so in the budget planning, the topic of affordable housing and affordable housing task force came up, and so I just wanted to build on that in a non-budget atmosphere, now that we can kind of take a deep breath of that, and I would really love for us to move forward with creating an affordable housing committee / task force to evaluate the situation of the town, but also to investigate grant opportunities on both the state and federal level in which the town can either procure money or to enact certain types of actions where we can alleviate the affordable housing crisis that we're experiencing, not only, on a national level, but also it's hitting close to home. And since I think just everyone on the board is so conscientious of not only the budgetary effects that it has on people's lives from having property taxes go up, but I think it's just a multifaceted problem that we're having that can be lumped into affordable housing. And so I know that that's a general thing, but I would love it if we could move towards creating a task force to look into those things, because we also don't know how long these monies are going to be available and accessible to us as a municipality.
I think it sounds great. I think it's important that we explore this as long as we can get enough people to work on this task force.
I think that's the key right there. We're having trouble getting people to even fill out our committees. And maybe there's a plan, but I think it's great myself. I probably should have led with that. But how are we gonna do it? We got committees that are starving for volunteers.
Which shouldn't, I mean, that shouldn't be
It shouldn't.
an impediment to, I'm wondering, and where my brain went, because if, you know, it's a no-brainer. Like, who is going to be opposed to the concept of a community taking action towards developing affordable housing infrastructure? Like, yeah, you'd have to, I feel like you'd have to be asleep at the wheel, but I am really curious, because we've got this great workshop coming up with the comprehensive plan committee. And I'm just wondering if it's one of the main I mean, obviously there's gonna be a lot of ground that we cover, but having that be part of our brainstorming session with them, and I know that they're tasked with a lot. I know that the comprehensive plan, you know, speaks to affordable housing, but I'm just wondering if there's some solution will come to light in a conversation with the comprehensive plan committee, where either they will have a subcommittee of the comprehensive plan, or, you know, that we can start to see a real actionable way forward, rather than kind of casting that big empty net of, like, you know, creating a draft sort of ad hoc committee and loose framework and deadlines and all that kind of thing, and sort of hope. But, you know, we've got this great body of really talented, capable individuals, and whether or not they have some contributions, or they have a pool of people that they know might be interested, that feels like more fertile ground to build this conversation upon, and kind of run with it,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Is that what you were thinking, or
Well,
looking
I don't
for
want-
ideas?
Oh, and Mike.
So I don't want to cut, yeah.
Yeah, sure, Mike.
That's all right.
We
I think I'm,
don't want to cut you off. Floating head off.
I know, because the head could get larger at any moment. Be careful. Yeah, no, you're not cutting me off, because I'm 2.5 seconds late to see behind you anyway, I'm afraid. But what I was going to say is that you took the words out of my mouth lately. I think the comprehensive plan is already on that. Maybe not sufficient, maybe not with the focus that Jordan, you may like, we all may wish that they have on this particular issue, but they given the number of people filling committee roles, they're all we have. And I would feel good if they were to identify the need first, and then look at ways to address that need. I think having the conversation with them at a workshop makes a heck of a lot of sense. And that's just my 2 cents, and I'll stay the same size. Don't worry, you're good.
Okay.
Seems like you're getting a big head, Mike, I don't know. You know.
All right, good.
So, and this is, I mean, you know, I think this is just a situation where we're actually all on the same page, honestly. Because where this was born out of was, and I think that this is why the comprehensive plan committee is so important and fruitful, which is why I really pushed for it to be reenacted, was that out of the comprehensive plan committee, it branches off into all of these subsections, which are really important to the town. So where affordable housing has always been important to me, but when Susan Silverio, who is part of the plan, you know, the comprehensive plan committee, brought this before us, I believe that this is the organic growth stemming from the discussions that are taking part on the comprehensive plan committee. So I think that it would be great for us to further this discussion when we workshop with them and see how that comes out. And I think that there's a natural way for this to progress without cannibalizing other committees, or, you know, because I'm aware, trust me, of the dearth of volunteers we have participating in committees. And I don't believe that starting out, this is something that necessarily needs to be a humongous committee. Maybe it's a 3 or 4 person committee to start out looking for grants, but I think this would be a good discussion to have with the members of the Comprehensive Plan Committee, especially the ones who have brought this forward and are passionate about it, and we can see how we can move this forward in a way that's beneficial for everyone and doesn't detract from anything that we're doing. So that was my thought, and it sounds like we're all, unless I'm totally misinterpreting it wrong, but I think that's kind of what everybody has said in a little bit of a different way. And so, yeah, I think we'll workshop with them and talk about it, and I'm sure that they will have some ideas of a way that we can frugally, with the man and woman power that we have, to move forward and see if there's opportunities for us to acquire some funds or to, do whatever is behooves us.
Great, cool. Anything else on this right at the moment? Well, continuing, you're in the spotlight. Agenda item number 9, Jordan.
So, and this is also very tied in with the Comprehensive Plan Committee, and Comprehensive Plan, as David was kind enough to provide us with a good amount of information on a fiscal plan, was just ways to, and this isn't a comment on the way things have been done or have been done,
Sure it is, go on.
We're all coming into a new reality where everything is getting more expensive, and I wish it was different, but there's not ever going to be a time where the amount of taxes or the amount of money that anything costs is going to go back to a level before. And taking that in mind, especially because, and I'm sorry for being superfluous, but the Fed is actively taking measures to try and suppress inflation, which is kind of a blunt force blunt force tool that they have, is raising interest rates, which they're doing quite rapidly. So whereas 10 years ago or 5 years ago, it was more advantageous for a municipality to take out bonds because the interest rates were extremely low. Now we're looking at a time where putting money away in savings in certain areas is actually going to create more of a return than it has in the past. I would just like to look at the way that we prepare for large-scale projects to see if there's a way, because I know 1% or 2% is little, but 1% or 2% back in the taxpayers' pockets versus 1% or 2% being paid out of the pockets, I think can be a large amount, especially when, we just went through budgeting and we cut things by $1,000 here or $1,000 there. And if there's a way that we can incrementally fund things and still have it coming in an interest-bearing account, just so that the brunt of the cost of large-scale projects aren't so hard. And this is long-winded, I'm sorry, but that was my whole thought of it, and I understand that that can be and will be rolled into the comprehensive plan, but I just wanted to air that out in front of everyone and say what my thinking was and why, and just that I think that that's fiscally a frugal, responsible way to look at it, because we know, every 10 or 15 years there's going to be a reevaluation. Every 10 or 15 years we're going to do the comprehensive plan. We know the road work that we're looking at is millions of dollars added up, and if there's a way that we can save some money and make some money, then I think we should. So I'm sorry for being so long-winded, but just wanted you to know where I was coming from on that one.
Well, and certainly moving forward, our financial advisory committee has an incredible amount of long-term data on those kinds of things, and it would be interesting to ask, when the comp plan committee is at that stage, maybe to interface with them and see where those two intersect. With existing committee bodies. Yeah.
Thanks for your patience through all that. I appreciate it.
It's your agenda item. You can
I
do
know,
that.
you know.
Any input on that?
I guess I'm just glad that we have this comp plan being worked on right now that's covering all of these things that you're touching on, such important issues that towns typically don't don't discuss. So talking about long-term, financial strategies and the previous agenda. And this is a time for our board to really be heavily involved with the comp plan as it progresses. So.
Yep. Mike, anything to add?
Well, yeah, Jordan, I think this is, and thanks for bringing this up. I think it's very timely, only because I can finally understand a bit of what you're saying. It's taken me a while. Not that I don't understand you, but I just learned a bit about budget. That's what I'm saying. And when I first started the budget process on this board, I made the mistake of doing a bit of homework on YouTube and the like, and found out that there's a lot of research and discussion out there about municipal budgets and how they are done. And textbooks have been written, seminars are offered, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not suggesting that we reinvent the wheel, or that we delve into a rabbit hole of how to build ourselves a new system. However, it certainly wouldn't be a bad thing to look at some of those options out there, whether offered by whomever, and about municipal budgets, how they are done. Talk with all the people in our administration who do budgets, town administrator, finance advisory committee, budget committee, et cetera, and see if maybe there's a better path forward. That's all I can think of. And I certainly don't know what that is.
Great, thanks, Mike. All right, anything else at this moment? Momentum forward, onward. Thank you all. Moving along, do we have an update from the broadband committee?
We have not met since the previous select board meeting. We have a meeting this Thursday where we will get a more comprehensive update from Mark Ouellette on our feasibility study. I think there's anything else. Jordan, is there anything else that I'm missing?
No, just that we've got our upcoming meeting on the 12th at 6 p.m. and we'll be furthering. I mean, there was a little talk about how to initiate the driving the roads and taking inventory of the physical infrastructure, and I think that's really going to be probably the crux of what we'll be discussing in that meeting. But
And I just want to encourage the public to go to the Town of Lincolnville website. On the homepage, there's a link to take a speed test that gives our town the data to have a more accurate picture of internet in Lincolnville.
So I've got a question about that.
Yeah.
Isn't this test, isn't doing the test that way going to be slightly skewed, because people nowadays are either on an iPad or they're on a phone, they're going to go to a website and do a test. Shouldn't that be done by a hardwired device for actual service in the house?
Good question, because I know I've done a speed test with my
Yeah.
terrible router, and
Yeah,
it was
and
not reflective.
I've done it because I'm getting very good service wirelessly, but it's even better if I go hardwired. So that seems like that would be a skewed number.
Or is there metrics?
so that is an excellent question. But what we're really trying to, this isn't like it's not even that deep. We're just trying to see what people are getting. And some people only use their phone.
Yeah.
And something like, in my case, my computer was fantastic 15 years ago. But what if I do a speed test on that computer now, it's gonna be vastly different than what I use on my phone. And I think the important thing is that, again, and I'm not trying to, push away your question because it's totally valid. Whatever somebody uses, that's what's gonna matter to them as far as the performance. So if if most people are using a tablet or most people are using a phone, then that's what's gonna be most important for the performance. But if we have no data whatsoever, then that's really, at this point, we're just trying, it's like, if we had to hand draw a roadmap of Lincolnville, you have to start with something and then we can refine it from that point. But we really just wanna get people on the map, and then if there's real discrepancies or we need to find out exactly what the performance level is, then we'll deal with that when we get to it. And again, not discounting your point at all, it's totally valid. It's just, we just want to see what people are
I have
doing.
a pea brain and some of the very small things that I think about, it's like, oh my God, I'm going to reinvent the wheel here by
But
asking
that's a
this
good
question.
point, it pings a location
Yeah, and that's, it is, that's
Yeah.
exactly it.
Can I show really quickly what that looks like? And share it.
It's like a map,
World.
and then you put a red dot on the map, and it's magic.
Josh? Wasn't in our packet.
Okay.
But it is right on the town's
Right on the
website.
If you go do a speed test, you can actually, from that main broadband coalition, you can access their map
Yeah.
and see it right there for yourself.
Shows you the whole
Yeah.
town.
Everybody that's done a test thus far.
Yeah.
Okay,
The Town of Lincolnville website's on the homepage.
yeah, super.
It's also on the broadband committee page.
But for those visual people, it is a map with a dot on it,
A map with a dot.
and it's wonderful.
Love maps. Okay, anything else on
Yep.
broadband?
I've got something. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I wanted to ask Josh Jordan, the next, with the broadband committee, I was wondering if you guys are getting in touch with LCI Tidewater to ask them if they're participating in the newly announced or rebranded American Connectivity Program that was just announced, that gives subscribers rebates to the tune of maybe total rebates, maybe $30 on their bill or something like that. That was just announced through Biden just announced that a few days ago. It's been on the news the last couple of days. And I just went to the Tidewater. I just went to the website that the government has on that program, the ACP program, and typed in our zip code and got Tidewater as one of the companies that provides ACP home internet subsidies to consumers. And I'm not asking for the board to ask Tidewater what their business is, what they do with their business. But I'm just suggesting if the next time, if the broadband committee talks with Tidewater, could they ask them that question if they are participating in that program? Because I think there are a lot of people in Lincolnville who might benefit from that program. That's all. Thanks.
So one of our next steps on the broadband committee is to try to schedule a meeting with LCI to have a conversation with them and see if they want to partner with the town to expand internet access. And I think absolutely we should ask if they're participating in this program. My understanding of the program is it's a voluntary program for service providers to offer low-income people a $30 a month plan of at least 100 megabits down. And then on top of that, there's an additional program that gives a $30 subsidy if you're low income. So to Mike's point, that means you could theoretically get internet for free. And so we should absolutely find out if LCI is doing that, and if they are, to really encourage people to fill out an application.
Thanks for bringing that up, Mike. Yeah.
And just, maybe I'll bring it up on the next agenda, but I don't know if you guys remember, but it was probably 5 months ago that I actually had brought that information into the board and made it public, because it has been around for quite some time.
I think there's two programs.
Right.
And the one you mentioned is the $30 off of your bill. But this one, it's funny, it's like an inverse thing where that program is $30 off of your bill if you are in a lower income bracket. And what Mike's referring to is it's $30 for your plan.
Okay. Sorry.
But you can use both of them together if the provider is participating.
Okay.
Be good to encourage that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Super. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Okay. Enough on broadband for this evening?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. David, do we have an ARP update?
Unfortunately, we do, and it's not good news or bad news, it's just news, but it made me uncomfortable for a period of time. Our first report for American Rescue Plan Act was due by April 30th. Fed started their portal, or opened their portal for reporting. The town of Lincolnville, along with what appears to be hundreds of other communities in Maine and perhaps thousands across the nation were denied access into the portal to do our reporting.
Shocking.
And then you have to fill out a certain request and send it to the Department of Treasury. So and they've acknowledged that we haven't filled it out. I mean, I asked for the permission. They've acknowledged it, and they've acknowledged to communities throughout the country that they recognize it as a problem and it won't be held against you because you tried, basically. So I'm still waiting to get full access to the portal to do our report, which will be very easy for year one, but not if you can't get by this level, so.
Because as a refresher, it's not like you waited till the last minute to do your homework. They didn't open the portal
Yeah,
right.
until,
Yeah, the portal opens either,
or not, or didn't open.
well, no, it opened as of some point in early April, and you had till the end of April to
Yeah.
do. I participated in a couple of sessions that municipal put on, and this is the easy way to get in. There were two different avenues that took you to the same portal. The suggestion was use this one, which I did, and along with a lot of other communities. And then you got so far in, which wasn't very far, and then it was like, nope, you don't have administrative approval to go any further. Blah 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 blah. Error message, and everybody was contacting MMA. What do we do? Email this certain address at Treasury. They'll acknowledge that you didn't get in, and eventually they'll turn you on or do whatever they do behind the scenes. We're kind of in limbo land, but I just wanted to let you know that desperately trying to do it.
Any questions for David on that? All right, let's move along. So the 13th is the eve of one of our favorite days of the year. So our first regularly scheduled June meeting is the evening before elections, to translate that. And David undoubtedly will have his hands full that day. So it is tradition and has never been adverse, I think, in our progress of just holding a warrant only meeting to do bills and payroll. And I would recommend doing that. And if we could do it, I don't know, earlier in the evening, say 5, I'd throw that out.
I unfortunately will not be in the country for that whole week, so.
Okay.
And certainly if there was an issue that came up that was of crisis proportion, we could add something to the
Sure.
agenda or do that. But
Yeah.
it certainly relieves one less stressor right before elections for staff, myself particularly.
5 o'clock would be.
5's okay?
for me.
Would that work for you, Karen? Mike, could you do that?
Yeah, 5, yeah, definitely.
Okay, super. Thank you, everybody. And selectmen updates. Karen, do you have anything for us?
This time, I do not.
Okay.
I got nothing.
Selectman Garrettson, do you have any updates for us?
I do, it's very exciting. I attended the Maine Resource Recovery Association Solid Waste Summit today at the Hutchinson Center. Had a great lunch. A lot of great.
Oh, no, I know.
Don't leave it
Doesn't go with that at all.
A lot of great discussions about solid waste, and
Great.
I especially learned a bit about the extended producer responsibility law that was put into place last year, that mandates that producers of consumer packaging have to pass those costs, or have to bear those costs, and that the money it takes to handle that packaging is passed on to transfer stations in Maine. So just learned a lot about how that process will work. They're still in the rule making process, but
Very neat.
very exciting.
Thanks for sharing. Selectman Ray, do you have an update for us?
Yeah, I do briefly. I don't think it doesn't qualify. It doesn't rise to the same level as yours, Josh. But I want to point out that I want to give a shout out to a couple of people and thank them because they recently stocked the woodshed over there. We got a huge, like 2.5 huge loads to fit into that tiny little shed because they want to get it all stocked up early in the season. And anyway, 2 people were able to do that successfully and get all of the wood in there. I don't know how they did it, but they did it. Rich Smith, Dan Henry, thank you very much. I hope you guys sleep well tonight because of it.
Thank you for that. Selectman Varda Parker, do you have an update for
I
us?
am updateless.
And moi aussi, I have no update to contribute, although I do hope we can schedule an EMS review committee meeting
Yeah.
sometime in the near future. Moving along, we do have the treasurer and payroll warrants to approve and sign.
I move that the board approve and sign the treasurer's and payroll warrants.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Barnett Parker, seconded by Selectman Late. Is there discussion? Seeing no discussion. Selectman Late, what is your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what is your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what is your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Barnett Parker, what is your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Motion passes. Thank you all. And if there is no additional business before the board,
Actually, there is.
oh,
Yep. I noticed something in the non-agenda items, letter B, the LD 1772. You've got a copy of that in there.
yep.
And I wanted to ask David, and I've talked with David, I've talked with you about this before, but what will that mean when it's codified, ratified, enacted into law, however that works for our policy that we have? How do we wrap the new language into our policy? I guess that's the question.
I think once we, since I haven't really delved too far into it, Mike, to be honest with you.
Sure.
We'll have to compare the policy that we have in place with the amended law to make sure that we're still compliant. And then if we are still compliant with the current policy, the question will have to be for the board, do you wish to amend the policy to incorporate this change, just for the benefit of the selectmen who weren't part of our conversation. Obviously, the legislature has adjourned their second session, although they were back today to deal with vetoes. The new laws, unless enacted under emergency nature, go into effect 90 days after the session ends. So in essence, 3 months. I would anticipate, well, I know there are other laws that will impact us directly. I would anticipate that in the coming days, weeks, we're going to get a succinct list from a municipal association likely of the impacts on municipalities, specifically with certain legislations. And we're going to have to digest that before we roll out kind of a package to potentially to all of you about, oh, there's this change in shoreline zonings, we ought to sign something for land use. There were some, I don't even know how they all panned out, but there were certainly some housing issues, or zoning issues that were debated with great vigor towards the end of the session. And the changes to the remote meeting and things that popped in immediately. So I think it's gonna be in essence, a quick internal review, whether it comes from our attorney's law practice or MMA or both, and then kind of focus in on who's in charge of that here and what changes might be needed. So
Okay.
look for
Thanks.
something in the coming weeks.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
Super. Thank you all. Yeah,
I do have one more question before we adjourn.
sure.
I did see something in the AP report. It just sparked my memory about well project.
Yeah.
Are we making out with that? Are we done with it? And
In
is it behind us?
tested and not as yet.
I'm looking for that. Okay, thank you, David.
Yeah.
Can we have a final motion,
I
please?
move to adjourn.
Second.
Ooh, moved by Selectman Barnett Parker,
We'll give it to Josh.
seconded by Selectman Garrettson. You're too kind, sir. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Lake, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Ray, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Barnett Parker, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes, we are adjourned. Thank you all, and keep your pens out because we do have a couple more things to sign.
Hey, Mike, I got a quick question.
Yeah, I can hear you, yeah.
Kind of a